They say you don't just marry a person, you marry their family. If I'd known what that really meant 5 years ago, I might have thought twice. Not about marrying David, he's the love of my life, but about how much his mother Eleanor's constant criticism would cost us, both emotionally and financially. I'm Sophia Chin, and until recently, I was a successful investment banker at Morgan Stanley. My parents immigrated from China with nothing, worked multiple jobs to put me through college, and taught me the value of both money and dreams. I paid off my student loans within 3 years of graduating, built a strong investment portfolio, and was on track to make partner by 35. Then I met David Martinez at a food festival in Brooklyn. He was serving the most amazing paella I'd ever tasted from a small food truck, his dark eyes sparkling as he explained how he'd learned the recipe from his Spanish grandmother. One taste led to dinner, dinner led to dating, and before I knew it, I was head over heels in love with a man who could make magic in the kitchen. David had a dream to open his own restaurant combining his Spanish heritage with modern American cuisine. He'd been saving for years while working as a sous chef at various high-end restaurants, but it was slow going on a chef's salary. When he told me about his vision, about the fusion dishes he created and the atmosphere he imagined, I knew this wasn't just a pipe dream. He had talent, experience, and the drive to make it work. What he didn't have was his mother's support. I'll never forget the first time I met Eleanor Martinez. She swept into the restaurant where David was working, dressed head to toe in designer labels, her perfectly manicured nails drumming against her Hermes bag as she assessed me. "Banking?" she'd said, her eyebrows rising when David told her what I did. "Well, at least one of you has a real career." David had tensed beside me, but I squeezed his hand under the table. I was used to people underestimating me. It came with being a young Asian woman in finance. What I wasn't prepared for was Eleanor's constant belittling of her own son's dreams. "Cooking is a hobby, darling," she declared over dessert. "It's fine for now, but you need to think about your future. My boutique is doing wonderfully. I could give you a real job in management, something respectable." Eleanor's boutique, a light style, was her pride and joy. She'd opened it 15 years ago with money from her divorce settlement, and it had become the go-to place for wealthy Manhattan socialites looking for exclusive European fashions. Her success had convinced her that she was not just a business owner, but a business genius. When David and I got married 2 years later, Eleanor's wedding gift was a job offer for David, not for us as a couple. She'd had business cards printed, David Martinez, General Manager, a light style. He quietly tucked them away in a drawer, never to be seen again. Instead, we started planning his restaurant. I spent evenings helping him refine his business plan, using my financial expertise to create detailed projections and funding strategies. We found the perfect location in an up-and-coming neighborhood in Brooklyn, a former warehouse with high ceilings and exposed brick walls. The price was steep, but I knew it was a solid investment. "I can help," I told him one night as we sat surrounded by floor plans and spreadsheets. "I have savings, and with my bonus coming up." "Sophia." "No," he protested. "It's too much risk. If something goes wrong, then we'll handle it together," I said firmly. "I believe in you, and I believe in this dream." We decided to invest $200,000 of my savings into the restaurant, combined with David's savings and a small business loan. It would be enough to renovate the space and get started. When we told Eleanor our plans over dinner at her Upper East Side apartment, her reaction was explosive. "You're doing what?" she screeched, her wine glass slamming down on her antique dining table. "Sophia, darling, has my son corrupted you completely? $200,000 on a restaurant in Brooklyn?" "Mom," David started, but she cut him off. "No, let me speak to your wife. Sophia, you're supposed to be the sensible one. You work in finance, for heaven's sake. You know how many restaurants fail in their first year. Why would you throw away good money on this fantasy?" I met her gaze steadily. "It's not throwing away money, Eleanor. It's investing in your son's talent and our future together." "Talent?" She laughed, the sound sharp and dismissive. "Making paella in a food truck is not talent. It's wasteful. That money could be put to better use. Did you know my boutique is expanding? Now that's a solid investment opportunity." The conversation devolved from there. Eleanor spent the next hour listing all the reasons the restaurant would fail, punctuating each point by topping off her wine glass. By the time we left, David was quiet and withdrawn. The enthusiasm he'd shown while describing his plans earlier completely deflated. But we pressed on. Over the next 6 months, we poured everything into getting the restaurant ready. David worked with contractors during the day and tested recipes at night. I kept my banking job but spent every free moment helping with permits, licenses, and financial planning. We named the restaurant Fusion Dreams, a nod to both David's culinary vision and our shared aspirations. Eleanor's campaign of negativity continued throughout the process. She sent David articles about restaurant failures, made pointed comments about wasting a good education on cooking, and repeatedly offered him that management position at her boutique. Each time, I watched my husband's confidence take another hit, but he persevered. The weekend before our opening, Eleanor stopped by the restaurant unannounced. She walked through the space with her nose wrinkled, as if she could smell failure in the fresh paint and new equipment. "Oh, Sophia," she sighed, running a finger along our custom-built bar. "When this all falls apart, and it will, don't say I didn't warn you. This kind of naive financial support will ruin both of you." I started to respond, but something caught my eye through the front window. A sleek black car had pulled up outside a late style across town, and 2 men in suits were taping something to the door. Even from a distance, I recognized that type of document. I'd seen enough of them in my banking career. That's when I remembered the rumors I'd heard at my last charity gala. Whispers about Eleanor's boutique, about unpaid suppliers and mounting debt, about how she'd been selling knockoff designer items alongside genuine ones to maintain her profit margins. Eleanor's phone rang before I could say anything. The color drained from her face as she listened to whoever was on the other end. Without another word, she grabbed her bag and rushed out, leaving behind only the lingering scent of her expensive perfume and the echo of her dire predictions. David emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands on his apron. Was that Mom leaving? I nodded, still watching through the window as Eleanor's Mercedes peeled away from the curb. Yes, but I think something's wrong. Those men at her store. "She'll be fine," David said, turning back to his prep work. "Mom always lands on her feet. That's what she keeps telling me, right? Unlike us naive dreamers." I wasn't so sure. Years of working in finance had taught me to recognize the signs of a business in trouble. And from what I'd just seen, Eleanor's carefully constructed world was about to come crashing down. The question was, when she inevitably came asking for help, what would we do? Fusion Dreams opened on a warm Friday evening in September. Despite Eleanor's predictions of disaster, the restaurant was fully booked for its first month. David's unique menu, think pala risotto with saffron foam and deconstructed tortilla espanola with truffle aioli, had caught the attention of several food bloggers. By the end of opening night, social media was buzzing with photos of his creations. I was at the host stand, greeting guests and managing reservations when Eleanor burst through the door. Her designer outfit was wrinkled, her perfectly maintained hair disheveled. The confident socialite who lectured us about business sense just days ago had been replaced by someone I barely recognized. "David," she called out, pushing past waiting customers. "I need to speak with you. Now." I intercepted her before she could reach the kitchen. "Eleanor, we're in the middle of service. Can this wait?" "No, it cannot wait." Her voice rose, drawing attention from nearby diners. "This is an emergency. The bank, they're trying to take everything." I glanced at the curious faces around us and made a quick decision. Let's talk in the office. Once behind closed doors, Eleanor's carefully constructed facade crumbled completely. Through tears and recriminations, the story emerged. Her boutique was more than just in trouble, it was underwater. Years of living beyond her means, extending too much store credit to her socialite friends, and yes, selling counterfeit merchandise to maintain her profit margins, had finally caught up with her. "They're saying I owe over $2 million, she sobbed. "The suppliers, the bank, the tax authorities, they're all coming after me at once. They've frozen my accounts. They're talking about criminal charges." I sat quietly, reviewing the papers she brought. Bank notices, legal documents, threatening letters from suppliers. The situation was even worse than I'd suspected. "I need help," Eleanor said, her voice small. "David, Sophia, you have to help me. I'm family." Before I could respond, David appeared in the doorway, his chef's coat showing signs of a busy kitchen. "Mom, what's going on?" Eleanor launched into her story again, this time with added dramatic flair. She painted herself as the victim of dishonest suppliers and ungrateful customers. She conveniently glossed over the counterfeit merchandise and unpaid taxes. "If I could just get a loan to tide me over," she finished, looking hopefully between us. "Say 200,000, just until I sort things out." The amount wasn't a coincidence. It was exactly what we'd invested in Fusion Dreams, the investment she called naive and wasteful. David looked at me, conflict clear in his eyes. This was his mother, after all. But I'd seen enough financial disasters in my career to know throwing good money after bad would only delay the inevitable. "No," I said firmly. Eleanor's head snapped up. "What?" I said, "No, Eleanor, we won't be giving you money." "This isn't your decision," she hissed, turning to David. "Son, please, you can't let your wife." "Stop right there," I interrupted, pulling out my phone. With a few taps, I brought up a video I'd been saving. "Before you continue, I think we should watch something." The video was from our security cameras installed just weeks ago. It showed Eleanor talking to one of our suppliers in the back alley 2 days before our opening. She was trying to convince him to delay our delivery, telling him we probably wouldn't last a month anyway. "You tried to sabotage us," I said quietly as the video played. "Your own son's dream, and now you want us to rescue you." Eleanor's face went through a range of emotions: shock, anger, finally settling on calculated manipulation. "David, darling, I was just trying to protect you. To prevent you from making a terrible mistake. Surely you can see that." But David had seen enough. Years of subtle undermining, of dismissive. But David had seen enough. Years of subtle undermining, of dismissed dreams and belittled ambitions, crystallized in that one video. "Get out." His voice was quiet but firm. "David." I said, "Get out, Mom. We have a restaurant full of guests, and I need to get back to the kitchen. My successful kitchen in my successful restaurant, which you tried to destroy." Eleanor stood, clutching her designer bag like a shield. "You'll regret this. Both of you, when they take everything I own." "You did that yourself," I cut in. "But since you're family, I'll give you some free financial advice. File for bankruptcy immediately. Cooperate with the authorities about the counterfeit merchandise. They'll find out anyway, and cooperation will look better in court. And take that management job you were always offering David." She stared at me. "What management job?" "The one that will be available at your boutique once the bank restructures it and sells it to new owners. I know the investment group that's likely to buy it. I could put in a good word if you demonstrate that you've learned from your mistakes." The implications sank in slowly. Her boutique wouldn't be hers anymore. She'd be an employee at the store she'd once owned, answering to new management. It was perhaps the perfect punishment for her pride. Eleanor left without another word, but the story wasn't over. Over the next few months, everything unfolded exactly as I predicted. The boutique went into receivership. The investment group, headed by one of my former clients, bought it at auction, and Eleanor, faced with mounting legal troubles, took the plea deal offered by the authorities and the management position I helped arrange. Meanwhile, Fusion Dreams flourished. David's innovative menu earned us a glowing review in the New York Times. Reservations became almost impossible to get. 3 months after opening, we'd not only recouped our initial investment but were showing a healthy profit. The final twist came during the holiday season. Eleanor had been working at the restructured boutique for 2 months, learning for the first time what it meant to be an employee rather than an owner. The new owners had maintained the store's high-end image but instituted strict financial controls and ethical business practices. One evening, she came to the restaurant just before closing. She looked different, more subdued, wearing clothes that were elegant but not flashy. She'd even started letting her natural gray show at her temples. "The food was excellent," she said quietly after finishing her meal. I didn't want to believe David could do this, create something so successful. I waited, saying nothing. "And you," she continued, "I thought you were throwing away your money, your career. I was wrong. About everything." It wasn't quite an apology, but from Eleanor, it was revolutionary. David emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel. He'd heard everything. "Would you like some dessert, Mom? I'm trying out a new dish, Spanish flan with matcha green tea infusion. A little fusion of our families." Eleanor's eyes welled up. "I'd like that very much." Things aren't perfect. Eleanor still occasionally makes comments about how we could expand faster or charge more. But they're suggestions now, not criticisms. She's learning slowly that success isn't just about money and status. Last week, she helped us host a special dinner event at Fusion Dreams, a fundraiser for a culinary school scholarship program we're starting. She worked the room like the social professional she is, but this time her pride was genuine as she told guests about her son's achievements. The real change came yesterday. Eleanor brought her first paycheck from the boutique to show us. It was probably a quarter of what she used to make, but she seemed more at peace than I'd ever seen her. "I've learned something," she said, sipping the wine David had chosen for her. "It's not about how much money you have or make. It's about building something real, something honest." I smiled, remembering my own parents' lessons about the value of both money and dreams. "That's what we've been trying to tell you." She nodded, looking around the bustling restaurant. "I see that now. And thank you for not giving me the money when I asked, for making me face the consequences, for helping me find a way to rebuild." David squeezed my hand under the table, just like I'd done for him so many times when Eleanor's words had hurt rather than healed. Later that night, after the last customer had left and the kitchen was clean, David and I sat at the bar, sharing a plate of his latest creation, a Spanish-Asian fusion tapas that would definitely make it onto the new menu. "You know what the best revenge is?" he asked, feeding me a bite. "What's that?" "Success that changes people for the better, even the ones who tried to stop you." I thought about Eleanor, about how losing everything had finally taught her the value of honest work and genuine relationships, about how our refusal to enable her destructive behavior had ultimately helped her find a better path. "You're right," I said, clinking my glass against his. "The best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting better." Through the window, I could see the boutique where Eleanor now worked, no longer the owner, but perhaps finally learning what it means to earn rather than demand respect. And here we sat in our thriving restaurant, the dream she dismissed now helping her rebuild her life. Sometimes the most powerful response to someone who doubts your dreams isn't to prove them wrong. It's to help them find better dreams of their own.